You're listening to a Media Post production. Welcome to Brand Insider BTS, where each week we go behind the scenes with some of the most influential women in marketing. I'm your host, Erin Eberhardt, and today I want to talk about what it means to be built for one life and choose a completely different one instead. Today's guest was raised on a ranch in Rock Springs, Texas. Now, I have never been to Rock Springs, Texas. I have never even heard of Rock Springs, Texas before. I imagine it looks something like the set of Landman, but with more cattle than pump jacks. Regardless, she had 5 a.m. wake-up calls. She worked in the brush. She rounded up Angora goats. And she was the 5th generation to do it. Textiles weren't a trend for her family. They were just your typical Tuesday. Ranching wasn't just a means to an end. It was in your blood. And she loved it. But there was something missing. So instead of following in her family's footsteps, she took a risk. She started sketching clothing designs in the middle of the night around a deceptively simple idea. Classy shouldn't come at the expense of comfort. Blazers can be just as comfortable as sports bras. And as someone who works from home for a living and needs constant reminders that leggings are not the only option, this speaks to me. And so Lee Evans Lee founded Mrs. Momma Bear. It's elegant, it's relevant, it's confident. I wore it Saturday night for a date night with my husband. I'm wearing it now. And I, for one, am glad she took that risk all those years ago. But how do you zig when your whole life you were supposed to zag? What does it take to build something from nothing? And how do you trust your instincts when there's no one else around? Let's find out. Lee, welcome to Brand Insider BTS.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, and such a fabulous intro. Thank you.
Lee, I love your story. I mean, talk to me about that pivot from Texas rancher to fashion brand founder. That's not one you really hear very often.
No, it's not. And normally people do a double take and, and they're like, what'd you just say? And then I normally follow up with, yeah, if you want to know a lot about goats, I'm your gal. And then that really throws them off. But, it does on paper sound like completely different polar opposites, but they're really not. And what I mean by that is this is where I can get totally into the weeds and obsessive, but just what are our clothes made out of? And that was my childhood. It was making that textile that makes a lot of the clothes that you wear on a day-to-day basis, whether it's 100% cashmere socks that you ski in, anything that has wool and mohair in it. I was, from the beginning to the little babies being born to sharing their mamas and growing them up, we were producing that textile for you. And so, like you said in my intro, it was in my blood. I used to we had a thing growing up on the ranch where you would go to other families' ranches to have lunch. And sometimes you drive for like 2 hours to have lunch. But it was a way of life, and you would host other people or you would go to their town. And I always, still to this day, it's one of my favorite things to do because the lunch will be long. You work so much. So then when you had these social pieces in the day, you were in it. And you would listen. And so in a lot of the homes, there were lace tablecloths. There were, the textiles that the wives would use on their chairs. They were made out of mohair. I mean, when's the last time you sat in a mohair, recliner? This is what I was brought up in. And it was just ingrained in me. And so it really was an obsession that was just in my blood from the beginning.
But most people can kind of love the obsession, love the textiles. You kind of took it to how do I design this? How do I make something that's fitted and comfortable? So where and how much of Mrs. Momma Bear traces back to that ranch for you?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it probably all of it does, to be honest with you. As you asked me that, I think about, when I woke up in the mornings, when I got the 5 a.m. wake up call, what would I put on? There was such I was so excited to squeeze on my Wranglers. And I remember the first time I got, a leather belt that had my name on it. Like that was like, my world was blown. And so there was such a, like the way you lived was definitely showcased in how you dressed, if that makes sense. Like it was like how, and I'm not talking fancy. There was just, your shirt was buttoned all the way up. Yes, it was for some protection, but it was also, that's just what you did. That showed like refinement. It showed, I'm proud of myself. There were just these details that said, here's who I am, you know? And so that took me into designing Mrs. Mama Bear, which was during COVID. We were working even more on the ranch, and I had found myself, like so many others had, just like the leggings and this athletic performance material had become the only thing I lived in. And I was like, honestly, I was like, I just want to get in one of my Texas ball gowns and like sit in my living room. And I think some people wrote about that and they talked about that. Like that's, I was like, I want to feel Tool. I want to feel like Oscar de la Renta draped on my body, you know, as ridiculous as it would be during that time because there was no place to go. And so that's how I looked in my closet and was like, surely someone has taken just a silhouette of the classiest suit and used workout material where it wicks, it breathes, and you can move in it. It stretches up to 4 times. Like, surely someone's done this. And they had not. And so then I was like, well, let's see if I can figure it out. And it started from the fabric. I had to have the best fabric to work with. Because if you know anything about sewing, and my grandmother did teach me how to sew, it's really hard to get structure like you have on, like I have on today, from just like lycra and nylon, which is typically what most athletic material is made out of. And I use a specific blend that has both of those in there with some other textiles blending in as well. But to get a structure of like what I dreamed of, an English made suit, you had to have some trial and error. But that was the beginning of it.
Well, and to your point, the fabric is effortlessly comfortable. I mean, it's wicking. And hey, I'm going to be real honest with you. I can be kind of a sweaty person.
Yeah.
I feel fantastic in this, and it can be in the middle of summer for it.
Yeah.
So it's so much about finding these little elements. And to your point of like, surely someone must have thought about this, but not, right? So you found an area and you're like, well, I can make this. Do you think that you could have made it without your kind of beginning at the farm itself?
You know, it's always like, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? I'm sure you probably could, but exactly what you're saying. Like, I remember working in, you know, television in my 20s, and I traveled a lot for the company. And we would get on and off of planes, and we wore suits every day. And you'd have to go from meeting to meeting. Nothing. I would have to change in a bathroom, switch out a blouse because, you know, I was going from cold to hot to the airplane to, you know, and the first time I wore, it's one of my first white suits I ever did. And I flew to Miami and I was like, this is going to be the test of all tests for the suit. Can I wear a suit in Miami and sweat in it and wear it all day? And I did. And people were like, what is this?
Wrinkle free. I mean, let's like even talk about we're on planes for 5 hours. It's uncomfortable. That is. There's also this changing consumer behavior with women specifically of like, listen, I want to look good, but above all, I want to be comfortable. Like that is where I'm at in my life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I had gotten there too. It was like, and I still wanted to get dressed up, whether I'm on a Zoom call all day long or running from a Zoom to an in-person meeting. I wanted at least the choice to be able to put something on, be dressed up, be elevated. but be comfortable, be able to leave the screen, go into my kitchen, make lunch for my kid, like walk the dog, all the things in between that we do while we're working at home and still be in a workout material without being in my leggings and, the sweats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you hit on it too of some people equate getting dressed up is to being fancy, right?
Yes.
Is to wearing the most expensive thing, is to having the glitz and the glam, but just being put together doesn't mean fancy, right? Like you're almost creating a new kind of definition of what it looks like for women at a certain age, right? Elder millennial over here. Like we want to feel and confident in what we're wearing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the Texas ball gown.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, just quite frankly, the choice. I had someone say to me, really in my first year of business, she said, did it have to take a woman to create this for women, to give us this alternative, to at least give us the choice in our wardrobes? And I said, I never thought about that. But yes, it obviously did, because I live it day in and day out. And I truly, like, I'm the first to love the Texas ball gown, but that's not day-to-day reality for me, And, even what I have on today, like I took my jacket off and was, I'm cooking Mexican food tonight for, Monday night, and then threw it back on to get on with you. And then I'll sit here and work and go get my son. And I feel like, I remember, and I'm sure you do too, like when you did get dressed up to go to the office, like there was, like, I love that. I mean, it was one of the funnest. Some people don't, but that was something I loved. And so this gives you that peace in your home for whatever your day brings, for whatever your day brings.
Yeah, it really fits too with just the changing way of how people are working, right?
Yes.
Especially for us remote workers, where 1 minute I am folding, Elsa dresses in the living room and I'm coming over here with calls on you. It's a good kind of balance to where it has. And I wonder, like would this would have happened without COVID too? Like there's kind of like a happy timing where you have consumers want to be comfortable, more people are working from home. Do you feel like you got a little lucky with the timing that this all kind of worked out for you?
Look, I mean, I think that timing does play into anything. However, nothing I've ever done has not taken a mountain full of hard work. So you can see the opportunity, but in order to take it and go for it you have to have that. Do you think, and I'm fascinated by consumer behavior. I think in that same, what was happening during COVID, what were we craving that we took so for granted, and along those lines too was I really saw how much I was changing my wardrobe through the day. It was like I would work out in the morning. I would change into, Dickies to go out on the ranch. Then I would like put on jeans and a button down. And then maybe I'd have a dinner that night and I'm like, some days there were like 4 wardrobe changes. And I'm like, this is the most. And so, yes, it gave that perspective. And so the other thing that I wanted to do was simplify the day. Like I have always been obsessed with uniforms, whether it be flight attendants or uniforms for race car drivers, sports teams. And so I really feel like all of us have our daily uniform that we're super comfortable in. We reach for the jeans and the button down or whatever it is. So this is that alternative in your daily uniform that can still take you from morning to night. And you're going to be comfortable in it.
I mean, you're speaking my language. It's like this was made for me. I want to talk about this pivot though. So fifth generation rancher, right? Like, again, this was not something that you easily walk away from. What gave you permission to kind of move away and try something new?
I mean, I definitely know my upbringing gave me that. There was a real, freedom, even though at the same time there was a real freedom to explore. There's such a deep cultural and also like preserve the heritage, preserve the brand, preserve the family. But at that same token, you can't get through a day of ranching without coming up with, you know, at least 10 solutions because something's going to happen. Like you're working with the land. And so something's going to happen. So that creativity that you had to have just on the spot and with, you're dealing with animals and there's just always something that's going to be out of place or broken or out of sorts, or you got to pivot that day. Somebody needs something on the other side of the ranch or whatever it may be. So I saw that growing up. Yes, it was in the context of the ranch, but I really know that behavior that I saw that, hey, we're going down this road. No, we got to go down this road, really gave me that flexibility to go, you know what? Like, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. But, like I always tell my son, I'm like, look, I'll let you know in the end if it works, which we're going to know together. But like, I don't want to be at the end and not know I didn't try. And I've always lived that way.
Yeah. Did you embrace this fully as your primary job when you were getting started all those years ago in COVID, or did it have to be a side hustle?
It was my nighttime job for about 2 years. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
2 years working at night, raising your son, being a family member. What was that like? How did you prioritize? How did you have you time?
I don't think I've really gotten good at you time, me time. And still, except recently, honestly. I mean, it's always been something I've really tried to work on because I know it's been my weakness, but what it was, and actually it makes me emotional thinking about was, it was just me and this creation at night. I would put my son to bed and then I would just draw and I would research factories. I would research blends. I would look for new conferences to go to that were on textiles. I was listening to podcasts that were on how to blend poly with cotton and mohair. And so instead of it being a stressor, I just let it grow. And there wasn't a, gosh, could this work or could it not work? There wasn't a, oh my God, I'm going to build this global brand that's going to take over the universe. It was, I have an idea that I like crazy love because it had all these facets to it, making women's lives easier, building a uniform that we could wear morning to night with our tennis shoes and a pair of heels. And so that just grew and grew. And I think the other thing was I didn't tell anyone what I was doing so that energy just kind of stayed together with me and at night. And sometimes I wouldn't go to bed till 1 or 2 in the morning. And when I look back on that, because, my son was still really young, like people would say, how are you even functioning? And my experience is what I have heard people say over and over again is that when you really start doing what you love and what you were meant to do, it doesn't take from you. It gives and it gives. And that is my experience. And it's still that way today. And I will, to be able to be a living example to that really brings me to my knees in gratitude. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds like that that time when you were getting started, like that was the you time you needed, you know? I mean,
You're right.
it was that creative outlet of like, this is my me time. Yeah, I'm building something, but it's where you're getting that kind of juice. You know, you talked about you didn't tell anybody. That's gotta be so hard. Like, how did you work through moments of self-doubt or moments of frustration, moments of exhaustion that will inevitably happen when you're just doing it alone?
Yeah. I am a deeply spiritual person. I write a lot. And honestly, that's how I got through it. And, there was, I think for the first time in my life, I mean, my dad was a banker, my mom was a teacher. So I come from this background too of, you know, when you have an idea, you build a business plan, you go seek funding. Like there's this whole, as you know, and I had, you know, been in that world for a really long time. And there was something just inside of me that was like, we're going to keep this right here. You got what you need right here for right now. And I did not reach outside my little creative world until I really, I felt it. And I, coming from such a really fundamental, like CPAs and to the books, that was a really just almost, against the grain of kind of just everything I had ever been taught. But somewhere inside of me, it was like, you know what? Not until you feel 1,000% and you'll know the person that you want to start talking to. Until then, you're just going to do your thing. And I kept it that way.
So when you were at that 1,000%, when you felt like, okay, I've gotten as far as I can go alone, who did you reach out to? And how did you know that they were the right person to help you take this to the next step?
Yeah. I mean, the person was my dad, and then it was my mom. My mom is she knows so much. She was the oldest of 3 on the ranch, and she knows so much about agriculture and textiles and what wool is being traded at today, you know, on the commodities market. And so, and then my dad is my financial guy, and he's also my rock, and they both are, but they're very on different ends. And that was the beginning, and then going, okay, here's where I'm going next with this. What do you think? Here's where I'm thinking of getting it manufactured. And then, you know, really from there, the person I spoke to next that became my confidant and my advisor within the retail world was the VP of manufacturing, where I have everything manufactured. And she really gave me the stamp of approval, if that makes sense. She now has probably been in fashion for, you know, 40 years. You know, when I first told her this idea, and I like, you know, tracked down her number and was stalking people. I mean, you know, I've done sales before in my life, so I have that like, I'll take a no, I'll show up on your door. You know, some things I don't think people even do today, but I mean, I was like stalking. I was like, this is who is going to produce this. And, you know, I'll never forget it. She was like, Lee, we never get to work on totally different ideas. This is so different. It's so out of the box. You know, give us some time. Let me visit with the CEO. And then, you know, we went from there. But that was that, okay, like, this is something that really isn't in the marketplace. If anybody knew, or if they were producing it, it would be them, you know? Yeah. And so that was the stamp.
Yeah. Most women, we sometimes struggle with asking for help, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be seen as a sign of weakness. It's like we're expected to do it all, so we should do it all alone. what advice would you give to our female listeners who may struggle asking other mentors or advisors for help to kind of unstick themselves?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is, and I have a grin on my face because, listen, I could probably write a book on the years that I didn't ask for help, so a living experience of that will get you into asking for help. But the first thing that comes to mind is so the people you want to ask, you got to have trusted advisors. And what I mean by that is, you may be surprised your business advisor who you want to go to and talk to about your business may not be in the business world, but they are a safe confidant for you. And I think there is both for men and women, I think there is such a way of thinking that, for business, we should be talking to these people for advice. For, creativity, we should be talking to these people for advice. And I completely disagree. It is who you feel comfortable with, who will tell you the truth is extremely important. Everyone in my circle, I have a thing where I'm like brutal honesty, like just lay it on me, And so I want that. I don't want to take the time. Don't beat around the bush. There were years that I needed that. I don't want that anymore. Like just take it straight at me. And then I would say that when you ask for help, you allow somebody else to ask for help. And I really do believe that as women, and it is something that even today, and I've come a long way, but when I ask for help, I allow you to ask for help. And we've got to really give that to ourselves, because I still think in today's day and age, we're still painted as though we should be able to handle everything. And I really believe that prevents us from building the businesses that we should be building and that we can build and that more of us should be building.
I mean, it's changing the narrative almost
Yes.
of just what it means to be a woman.
Yes.
As the founder of your own company, I mean, you're wearing 100 different hats. You're a salesperson, you're a manufacturer, you're a marketer, right? You're an accountant,
Yes.
right? All of these things. So what helps you prioritize to focus on what really matters for the business?
Yeah, so that's always shifting for me, but first and foremost is sales. It's sales every morning and every night. I go through every single sale that's gone through. I go through every single exchange if there's an exchange, and I go through every single return and I read what the reason was. And we sell on Amazon and Walmart. So sometimes that can be a lot of units and people are like, how do you do that? I will tell you, it never gets old, and this still makes me cry to see an order come in. And so me having that time, if you're returning it or you're exchanging it or there's a problem with the size, that tells me how I need to shift moving forward. So it's always about sales. The sales and your feedback, there is not, and as long as I do this, any customer email that comes through, it comes to me. After the team reviews it, it comes to me. And because I want to see. The second collection I produced was called Love Letters. And that was all about with my original customers of the first line were asking for. And it was my love letter to my customers. They were wanting dresses. They were wanting just black and white. And so that collection was all about the customer. So that's first and foremost. And then the priority list I'm fascinated by that because it does shift on a week to week basis. Before I go to bed at night, I look at my next day because I'm also I know, especially if I'm traveling, what that week's going to look like, but I really want to be ingrained in the day. So at night, after I get my son to bed, is when I look at sales and then I look at the next day and I write down my appointments, but then I make above that the 3 things that have to get done first thing in the morning. So whether that's like this morning, it was a sample box that came in Friday and I didn't have time to run through them and give sizing feedback and color changes. That was first on my list because again, it's really typically it's sales and product. Those are the first, in sales, obviously, include the customer. That's everything. And then we kind of go down the list from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time where you've had to maybe shift directions in order to protect your time because it is so valuable, not just for you and the business, but for your family too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can tell you, last November, Q4, as everyone knows, is just so bonkers for retail. And, I will tell you, my son, I could feel like he needed a little more TLC. I had been on the road. It had been a really big summer. We were doing a lot more events. And I literally was like, every single trip in November is coming off the calendar. And I did. I did not go. And to me, it's not where you go, but it's what you do. If they really want you there, there will be another opportunity. And I think we've got to be really strong and standing not only for our companies as women, but for our families, because we are building the next generation. And so we do. For me, it is a part of my priority. In between today, I have cooking days, because that grounds me in my motherhood. And I love more than anything being a mom. It's as, if not more important than being a CEO. They're just different. But I did. And then really after that November, I said, okay, I really reprioritized what my travel schedule looked like. If I'm going to go, what's the impact? Do I need to be at every single red carpet that I get invited to? What? Because our time is so important. And that time at night, putting my son to sleep, we will, he's going to be in college before I can probably blink 10 times. That's how I feel with him being a 13-year-old. And everybody says this, but until you start living it, are you like, slow down. And I don't want the time to go by without knowing that, if I could move something around, that I did. And that's what I want. That's what I want. That's how I want to live.
Lee, for women who may be sitting on an idea right now, who are thinking, surely someone's thought of this. Surely this needs to happen. What do you want them to know? What do you want those future female entrepreneurs to know?
Start drawing it. Start researching it. And it's not only the future entrepreneurs. I think the you and I's of the world, I almost have a higher standard for myself than I ever have. And what I mean by that is, yes, we all have crazy, busy lives. However, the most important thing that I can do as well as a woman entrepreneur is lift somebody up. And I think that so many times it's a beautiful idea to talk about. But if one person reaches out to me and really wants to learn, hey, can you give me some ideas of manufacturers I can reach out? I pause and I answer that email with great intention. And that's how I really believe that we change the world too, because we all say that, but if we're not doing it, if you and I aren't doing it, then we're not really helping. And so that is something I talk about a lot is, you know, and if I can't help that person, I am like, let me get you to someone else. And I will not pass them off until I know they are wrapped in secured hands. Because I am one of those that's so passionate about, so many people love to talk about things, but what are they really doing behind closed doors, And so draw it. Build your network around you as far as those safe people that you want to talk to, and then go from there. But do not sit on the idea. And you may think about it for years. I had this idea for 2 years and I didn't tell anybody about it. Don't let that scare you. Just keep working on it. That's what I would say.
Lee, I love the product you created. I am motivated after this conversation. I feel like I could take on the world right now.
Yes.
Girls, all my females out there, go check out Miss Momma Bear. Their clothing is fantastic. Lee, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been so much fun talking to you.
Thank you. It's been a blast. I've loved it. Thank you for having me.